My daughter left me at a hospital and never came back. The autumn leaves drifted down outside my window as I sat in the wheelchair, waiting. The hospital corridor's antiseptic smell had become familiar over the past 3 hours, almost comforting in its consistency. Unlike my daughter Sarah, who had promised to return after she took care of a few things. "We'll just get you checked in, Mom," she had said that morning, her voice tight with something I couldn't quite place. "The doctor wants to run those tests we talked about. I'll be right back after I park the car and fill out your paperwork." That was 5 hours ago. My name is Eleanor Wright. I'm 78 years old, and until today, I thought I understood my place in the world and in my family. Now, as the afternoon light fades into evening, I'm beginning to wonder if everything I believed was just a comforting fiction I told myself. It had started as an ordinary Tuesday. I woke at 6, as I have done every day since George died 3 years ago. The arthritis in my hands was acting up, but I managed to make my tea and toast. I was halfway through the morning crossword when Sarah called. "Mom," she said, her voice oddly formal. "I've scheduled those tests we discussed. The doctor had a cancellation. We need to go in today." I was confused. "What tests, dear? I don't remember discussing any tests." There was a pause, a sigh. "The memory tests, Mom. Remember? You've been forgetting things. The appointment is at 11. I'll pick you up at 10:30. I wanted to argue to say I hadn't been forgetting anything important, just the occasional name or where I'd placed my reading. Glasses, normal things. But Sarah had that tone she gets, the one that says she's made up her mind. So I agreed. When she arrived, I noticed she had brought a small suitcase with her. "What's that for?" I asked. "Just some overnight things," she replied, not meeting my eyes, "in case the tests take longer than expected." Looking back, I should have known then, but I trusted my daughter, as mothers do. The hospital was busy when we arrived. Sarah seemed to know exactly where to go, steering me through the maze of corridors, with determined efficiency. We ended up at a desk labeled Geriatric Assessment Unit. The young woman at the reception desk smiled at Sarah, not at me. "Mrs. Bennett, we've been expecting you and your mother." Sarah nodded, handing over a folder of papers. "Here's everything you asked for. Medical history, insurance, power of attorney documents." Power of attorney? When had I signed that? I opened my mouth to ask, but Sarah was already answering more questions, speaking about me as if I weren't there. Episodes of confusion. Found her wandering in her nightgown last month. Sometimes doesn't recognize her grandchildren. None of that was true. Or was it? A seed of doubt planted itself in my mind. Had I been forgetting more than I realized? "Mom." Sarah turned to me, her voice suddenly gentle. "Why don't you sit here while I fill out the rest of this paperwork?" She guided me to a wheelchair, though I could walk perfectly well. Before I could protest, a nurse appeared. "I'll take her to get settled," she said to Sarah. "These admittance procedures can take some time." "Thank you," Sarah replied, relief evident in her voice. "Mom, I'm going to park the car properly and finish up here. I'll be with you soon." The nurse wheeled me away. I looked back to see Sarah watching me go, her expression unreadable. The nurse took me to a small room where a doctor briefly examined me, asking strange questions. "What day is it today?" "Who is the president?" "Can you count backward from 100 by 7s?" I answered correctly, though I stumbled a bit on the counting. Math was never my strong suit. After the examination, they wheeled me to a waiting area. "Your daughter will join you shortly." the nurse assured me. 1 hour passed, then 2. I asked another nurse about Sarah. She's probably still completing the admission process, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. 3 hours. 4. Began to notice things. The other elderly people sitting nearby. Some appeared confused. Some were sleeping in their wheelchairs. Some were talking to themselves. All seemed to be waiting. Just like me, 5 hours now. "Excuse me," I finally said to a passing nurse. "I need to call my daughter. She was supposed to come back hours ago." The nurse, her name tag read Maria, paused, then sat down beside me. Her kind dark eyes met mine. "Mrs. Wright, let me check." "On that for you." She returned 15 minutes later, her expression carefully composed. "Mrs. Wright, it appears your daughter has completed all the admission paperwork. You're scheduled for a comprehensive geriatric assessment over the next several days." "But when is she coming back?" Maria took my hand. "Your admission papers indicate this is a long-term assessment. Your daughter has left contact information, but she isn't scheduled to return today." The realization washed over me like ice water. Sarah wasn't coming back. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow either. That night, in a strange bed in the geriatric ward, I lay awake piecing things together. The hushed phone calls Sarah thought I couldn't hear. The casual visits from my grandchildren that felt oddly like goodbyes. The way Sarah had been cataloging my belongings, asking questions about my will and family heirlooms. My daughter had planned this. She had exaggerated, or perhaps invented, lapses in my memory to have me committed for assessment. But why, Vori? Next morning, Dr. Patel came to see me. A gentle man with soft-spoken words and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Wright, I'd like to talk with you about why you're here." I sat up straight. "I'm here because my daughter brought me under false pretenses and abandoned me." He looked surprised at my clarity. "Your daughter has expressed concerns about your memory and your ability to care for yourself. She's requested a complete cognitive assessment." "And how long will that take?" "Typically, 5 to 7 days. But Mrs. Wright," he hesitated, "your daughter has also initiated paperwork for long-term care placement following the assessment." My heart sank. "She wants to put me in a nursing home." Dr. Patel didn't deny it. "She's concerned for your safety." "Based on what?" He consulted his notes. "Reports of confusion, wandering, inability to manage medications, failure to pay bills on time, leaving the stove on." I shook my head. "I forgot to pay the electric bill once because the statement went to my spam folder. And I've never left the stove on in my life." Dr. Patel studied me. "Mrs. Wright, would you consent to our assessment? If your daughter's concerns are unfounded, we need to document that." I agreed. What choice did I have? The next few days were a blur of tests, questions, and evaluations. Memory tests, coordination tests, psychological evaluations. They watched how I ate, how I dressed myself, how I socialized with others. On the 3rd day, a young social worker named Keisha came to see me. "Mrs. Wright, I've been assigned to your case. I understand you believe you're here under false pretenses." I told her everything. About Sarah's sudden insistence on these tests. About being abandoned at the hospital. About my suspicions. Keisha listened carefully, taking notes. "Mrs. Wright, do you know if your daughter is named on any of your accounts? Or if she has power of attorney?" A chill ran through me. "She helps me with my banking sometimes. And yes, she has medical power of attorney, in case something happens to me." My late husband insisted we set that up after his cancer diagnosis. Keisha nodded. And your house? Do. You own your home? Yes, it's paid off. It's in my name, but... I stopped, remembering. Last year, Sarah suggested I put her name on the deed. For estate planning purposes, she said. To avoid probate. Keisha's expression confirmed my worst fears. Mrs. Wright, I think we need to look into this further. With your permission, I'd like to request a financial audit as part of your case. Review. The financial audit revealed what I'd feared, but couldn't bring myself to believe. Over the past year, Sarah had systematically taken control of my finances. Large withdrawals from my savings, a home equity line of credit taken out against my house, a house that now listed her as co-owner. My retirement accounts mysteriously depleted. When confronted by the hospital's elder care advocate, Sarah claimed it was all for my benefit, for my future care needs. But the new luxury SUV in her driveway and her recent expensive vacation told a different story. Dr. Patel's assessment found no significant cognitive impairment, just the normal, mild forgetfulness of aging. You're perfectly capable of independent, living with minimal support, he told me. There's absolutely no medical reason for nursing home placement. But by then I had nowhere to go. Sarah had already put my house on the market. It was Maria, the kind nurse from my first day, who saved me. My mother runs a small boarding house for seniors, she told me one evening. Nothing fancy, but it's a real home, not an institution. She has a room opening up next month. Until then, my sister has a spare room you could use. I was overwhelmed by her kindness. Why would you help me? You barely know me. Maria's eyes filled with tears. My grandmother went through something similar. By the time we discovered what my uncle had done, she'd lost everything. No one stood up for her. I promised myself I'd never let that happen to anyone else, if I could help it. And so, when I was discharged a week later, it wasn't Sarah who came to get me. It was Maria and her sister, Carmen. Sarah didn't call, didn't check on me, didn't seem to care where I had gone. My own daughter, whom I had raised, loved, nursed through illnesses, supported through college and divorce, had discarded me like an outdated appliance. Carmen's spare room became my sanctuary, small but clean, with a window that looked out on a garden filled with roses. Carmen was an artist who worked from home, creating beautiful pottery in a studio behind the house. You have good hands, she noticed, watching me help her knead clay one afternoon. Strong fingers despite the arthritis. Would you like to learn? I discovered at 78 that I had an affinity for clay. The feel of it, cool and responsive beneath my fingers, brought me a peace I hadn't known I was missing. Maria's mother, Luz, welcomed me into her boarding house a month later. There I found not the sterile corridors of an institution, but a vibrant household of 6 seniors, each with their own story, their own heartbreaks and triumphs. There was Walter, a retired English professor who hosted poetry readings in the garden. May, who taught us all to make dumplings and practice Tai Chi every morning. Frances, who, despite her oxygen tank, never missed a chance to dance when someone played the old vinyl records in the living room. And there was James, a widower with kind eyes and a talent for growing vegetables, who asked permission to sit beside me at dinner and, later, to hold my hand during movie nights. 6 months after Sarah left me at the hospital, she found me. How? I never discovered. She appeared one Sunday afternoon at Luz's house, designer sunglasses perched on her head, an expensive handbag clutched in manicured hands. "Mom," she said, her voice breaking in well-rehearsed emotion. "I've been so worried. You just disappeared. I looked at my daughter, truly looked at her, perhaps for the first time. I saw the calculation behind her concern, the self-interest masquerading as love. "Hello, Sarah," I said calmly. "What can I do for you?" She seemed taken aback by my composure. "I've come to take you home, Mom. I've been looking everywhere for you. The hospital wouldn't tell me where you'd gone." "That's because I invoked my privacy rights," I replied, "and I am home." "But your house, your things." "Sold, I understand. Along with my car and most of my possessions, she had the grace to look embarrassed. "It was for your own good, Mom. I was setting up a fund for your care." "A fund you've been dipping into quite generously, according to my lawyer." Her eyes widened. "Lawyer?" "Yes. Elder law specialization. Very competent, very thorough." What I didn't tell her was that the lawyer was actually Keisha's brother, who was indeed building a case, gathering evidence for potential charges of elder financial abuse. Sarah's expression hardened. "You always were stubborn. I was only trying to help. By having me committed on false pretenses, by stealing my life savings. I did not steal, Sarah," I interrupted gently. "Why are you really here?" She hesitated, then reached into her expensive handbag and pulled out an envelope. "The house sale closed. This is your portion." I knew without looking that it would be considerably less than half of what my house was worth. The house George and I had bought in 1973, where we had raised our family, where we had planted trees now tall enough to shade the entire yard. "Keep it," I said. "Consider it payment." "Payment for what?" "For showing me who you really are before it was too late. For forcing me to find a new life when I thought my best years were behind me." She stared at me. This daughter I had once known, better than I knew myself, now a stranger. "You can leave the check on the table," I continued. "I'll have my lawyer look it over. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a pottery class to teach this afternoon." Sarah left, the check on the table. I never cashed it. Instead, I had it framed as a reminder that sometimes what seems like an ending is actually a beginning in disguise. The elder abuse case against Sarah was settled out of court. She returned most of my savings and signed over the proceeds from another investment account she had borrowed from. Not everything was recoverable, but enough. I stayed at Luz's boarding house. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I had found a community there, a purpose. My pottery now sells at local craft fairs. I teach classes twice a week to other seniors, and recently to a group of children from a nearby after-school program. James and I were married in the garden on my 80th birthday, surrounded by roses and friends who had become family. Sarah did not attend. Sometimes, in quiet moments, the pain of her betrayal still catches me unawares. How does a mother reconcile the child she raised with the adult who could discard her so easily? I haven't found that answer yet. But I have found something else. The understanding that family is not always defined by blood. Sometimes it's the nurse who notices your distress, the social worker who believes your story, the artist who sees your potential, the widower who holds your hand, and sometimes the daughter who leaves you at a hospital and never comes back, gives you, in her absence, the greatest gift of all, the chance to discover just how strong you truly are. I am Eleanor Wright. I am 81 years old, and this is not the end of my story. It's just the beginning.